It's your boy Neil Yeen, aka Uwu Bowl, aka Tommy Wise Owo, aka Gay Furry Fred Durst, and I am fulfilling a promise I made to make a video about how I choreograph my action scenes and about like the storyboarding aspect of that, which is something that I don't really post a lot about. But oh, I should put like some music on. So I don't normally post that much about storyboarding because usually if I'm making like a piece of fiction content and I'm gonna put it on my YouTube channel, if it's gonna be an animatic, the story being a surprise or whatever is kind of like I have to like not spoil nothing. I don't want to give away everything. Nah, but I mean, to an extent, and also like if I'm not storyboarding for myself on something, then I am doing it for work, and that's usually NDA. But for this, I've been making hella portfolio projects. Storyboard work around LA is fucking dry as shit right now, and my fucking ADHDism kind of copes with that by manically making portfolio pieces. And one of the manic portfolio pieces I'm making before I legitimately commit to taking a fucking break, because I am a little compulsive and hyper, but this donkey boy that I often draw, covered in blood and looking really smug, on my music. If y'all listen to that shit, like fucking, I am making a movie about this character. He is not just a representation of my epic flows and bars. My fucking D-Town fucking flows, nigga. This is an actual character for whom I have written hundreds and hundreds of pages of content. I'm not even no cap whatsoever. And I'm finally making a movie about him. So if you're one of those niggas who, you're not like a board artist or you're not interested in this topic and you want the punk ass pirate donkey pilot film, I couldn't think of an alliteration, to be a complete fucking surprise, then I suggest not watching this video. But it's not gonna fucking spoil that much. It's a fight. I constantly draw this nigga looking aggressive with weapons in his mouth and touching his balls and shit. So like, obviously there was gonna be a fight. Spoiler alert, there's furry murder in this cartoon. Who would have guessed? So anyway, um, so I have been asked a lot about like my fight scenes and stuff like that, and like kind of like to give some tips on like how I get them shit started, and there's a lot of motherfuckers, giving away a lot of info for how to make an action scene or how to be an action board artist for lots of fucking money that my fucking broke ass wouldn't have been able to fucking afford when I was in college. So I'm gonna give it to you high as fuck for free, and if you understand any of my ramblings, then you made off like a bandit. So a lot of the shit that I do, everything that I do at home, when it comes to my storyboards, is the same shit that I do at work. That is by design because I use these things to find work. Most board artists that you might see on Twitter or something like that, who are very popular, they are but a drop in the bucket of many, many, many board artists who create all the TV shows you have never fucking heard of that are on like Hulu and shit to this very day. There are hundreds of storyboard artists in LA. It's probably the easiest to get into, as far as like Western TV animation jobs, to be real. Like it's there's I mean, I say that because it's the thing I do, but like legitimately, there's more storyboard jobs than like any other job. Being a revisionist or a board artist, it's something that cannot be easily replaced by 3D, cannot be easily replaced by software. It is the cartoon itself, and I've learned over the years that it's actually my favorite part of the process. I've not really fit in too well with the industry here, but I make it by because I'll do a little fucking neat trick once in a while, like making my own fucking fight scene, and that usually gets me jobs. And to be fair, it's not like they. It's important to have your own like relationship with art and stuff like that. But doing it for other people is a different story. But I don't want to fucking go too off topic. But like when it comes to fight scenes specifically, people kind of want you to stunt. You know, like people. One thing I've learned from being a little bit of a weirdo out here with my sensibilities is that if there's something really niche, like having a boner for fucking fight scenes, then your style and the things that you like to do and your personal sensibilities are gonna be like worth fucking gold. Okay, so like, I have kind of made it by a lot. I think thanks to the fact that I love making fight scenes and I know it. Nigga, I'm fire at it. Like the fuck I'm gonna fucking say? You want me to lie? No, I just get a lot of fun out of it, and I feel very confident about it because it's the thing I think about and do the most. You know, so like making fights at home for shit like Kill Wolfie, you know, whatever has an action scene in it or whatever. That's kind of like a crevice that I feel that is something I can reliably find a gig with. And if you're one of those people who wants to be like that, this should be pretty helpful. So tip number one for being an action choreographer for animation slash fucking action board artist. Tip number one is that there is no right way to do it, and whatever you think is cool is gonna be your fucking gravy train. That's tip number one. Everybody does this shit differently. For every way there is to do a talking scene, there is probably 1,000 times that much ways for like a fight scene. You know, the way gravity hits, the speed at which you do, you know, a fucking fight scene or whatever. You know, like I have other buddies who are into this shit too, but they all do things at different speeds. They do different, you know, kinds of like impacts. You know, some of them don't like impact at all. You know, it's like there's a lot of different ways. But what you need to do first if you want to be a dope action board artist is that you need to know what you fucking like. And that's not that shouldn't be very hard. If you want to do it at all, there's probably something you saw that made you feel that way. So, when I was a kid, I had my kind of like art awakening watching the Cowboy Bebop movie and Cowboy Bebop in general, but mostly the movie because the movie had really indulgent fights. And one of them is this insane, just grounded but still like supernaturally fucking sick action scene of Spike fighting basically Spike, Shadow the Hedgehog, Vincent Volaju on top of a fucking tower, and the scene's really orange. You've probably seen it. If you haven't, just type in Spike versus Vincent. It's my favorite piece of animation ever. Like favorite scene ever. It destroyed me when I saw it as a kid, and like made me really aware that like, oh, throwing a bunch of power beams around and shit like that, there's more to this than that. You can do so much more than that. And I started drawing more anatomical, you know, action and stuff like that. Or at least my fucking teenager version of that, you know, back then. It made me really aware of hand-to-hand combat, CQC, you know, and stuff like that. It made me want to like look at actual martial arts and wrestling and like, you know, fighting games and stuff like that for more clever fights, because like I had just been watching fucking Inuyasha and you know, fucking like Yu Yu Hakusho and shit, which are dope, but you know, the fights aren't always super choreographed. They are written, but choreography is a completely different fucking thing. There's so many more dimensions that just writing cannot fucking account for, that regular storyboarding cannot account for. It requires extra thought, extra elbow grease, extra Asperger's, but you know, like fucking, it is really important to know what you like, because you will always be going back to it when you're making stuff. You'll always be repeating it and recreating something you saw in it, and that's perfectly fine. You'd be surprised how many people are doing that. I am always recreating that fight from Cowboy Bebop, and I'm always fucking recreating any Sakura fight in Atsushi Wakabayashi's fucking episodes of Naruto, like the ones that are really goopy that everybody thinks are ugly. That shit is everything to me. Norio Matsumoto is my favorite animator. Atsushi Wakabayashi, like, I don't know too much about him, but everything he touches looks so, like, bouncy and interesting with the way it moves. And that always stuck with me. So, like, between those two, I'm always kind of going back and forth between this bouncy, cartoony kind of fighting that is just, like, ugly and visceral, and also, like, trying to get, like, the anatomy down, and the anatomy dimensional and well thought out, you know, as much as I fucking can. And storyboards, you can't really go too much into this detail, but, like, honestly, you know, in, like, Avatar The Last Airbender and Korra and shit, a lot of the fight choreography was very vivid in the fucking storyboards. You know, a lot of those cats who boarded those fights from Korra were thinking out the most minute movements. They were key animating it. And sometimes you kind of have to, you know, if you really want it to look how you want it to look. So, first step, and you can listen to the rest of this video because it's just like a fucking high furry rambling, but, like, you know, if you do anything after you click off of this, it is to just watch all the fights that you love, watch all the action that really sent a chill up your spine when you saw it, and become familiar with it. Watch it over and over again. Watch it every fucking day, honestly. Like, you know, watch shit that you love every day. You get sick of it, think of the second best thing and the third best thing. Your inspirations are, like, fucking invaluable. That's the only thing that'll really tell you how to do this. I can't do that, you know. I can only share what I do. So, first thing that I do when storyboarding is I like to make shit as rough as possible. So a lot of these drawings, you know, they are very, very, like, simple, not too many lines, no hard perspective, nothing like that. You know, just like, you know, if you look at each individual drawing, you might not know exactly what's going on, but, like, when you see it moving, it'll make more sense because, you know, the motion of your characters, the motion of your camera, your staging, that's all what's most important at this stage. And you can always change those things, but it's easier to start thinking about it early, you know. The thing about storyboarding and any type of, like, animation related medium, I think, is working in broad strokes. You know, you should work as if anything that you do might be thrown out, because you're going to be building on top of it. You know, you're like that goat in that hole. You know, niggas is throwing dirt on top of you, and you got to step on one piece of dirt at a time. So never feel like any amount of work you put in was wasted. But to maximize how much you get out of the amount of work that you do put in, I swear to God, I hope this makes sense. You, in order to maximize the amount that you get out of what you put in, it's best to work in really broad strokes. Go in with fucking lollipop stick figures. Don't worry about hooking anything up. Don't worry about animating anything. Put down the shots just to some music, you know, and then go in and, like, add a few more drawings. You know, some of these are like, some of these shots are going to be pretty animated when I get to them. Like in this one, like, I have, like, two guys, and Punk, who is the blue stick figure, is coming down and stabbing this guy in the fucking throat. And there's going to be a blood spray, and he's going to, like, throw a smoke bomb, you know, and all this shit. So, like, this is just 4 drawings. This is how a lot of this shit starts out. Like, literally this drawing, I think, was what I put here to this part of this song. And then, like, I added to it, added some little camera shakes and stuff like that. But, yeah, if I were you, do the easiest possible, get to the end in the easiest possible manner you can. Doesn't have to be timed to any music, you know, just assume that whatever you do, just like with pottery, you know, you're going to round it out more and more and more. And you're always going to start from the beginning of that circle that you're working in. And so, no time is wasted. Never, ever with art. The only time your time is wasted is when you got a capitalist breathing down your fucking neck, you know, to get to your deadlines. But, like, when you're doing your own shit, though, you set the bar. So, so this is kind of like what I would start with an action scene, you know, and most of the time in a talking scene, even, it's probably this simple, but I wouldn't, like, color code them or anything. But, the important thing is the motion, so I'll kind of show you a little bit. So even this, you know, like, this is enough to tell me later, regardless of whether I'm showing somebody else, you know, y'all might be able to understand what's going on. I like to hope that 10 years in TV animation would help with that, but, like, you know, fucking, it's enough to tell me what the important actions are in the story. And you might notice that like some parts don't have any drawings for some characters at all. You know, like this part, you got two guys shooting at whoever Punk is using as a human shield in his leg. And, you know, he's still holding the guy, but like there's a few drawings to where I don't draw the paint guy because like what the important part of this part of this scene is showing like Punk kicks the gun out of this guy's hand. You know, the guy disappears because this drawing for the guy and for the human hostage or the human shield are not important to what's happening to the motion. Just Punk's leg coming up, cocking back as the guy tries to grab his gun and bam, kicks him in the fucking throat, you know, and then we can see the other guys. And then there's also this purple guy who just kind of pops in here, but the reason that he's not here is because, like, I can have him basically doing whatever. He just needs to occupy space until it's his turn to get his shit kicked in, right? So, like, like, he's just waiting for this part. So this is what I mean about broad strokes. You know, it was even less detailed than this when I first went through it. Like, I don't even think I had a BG, you know, like this cube or whatever I made to insinuate the elevator there inside of. So that's tip number 2. Work in really broad strokes. Just fucking get to the end. You don't have to use music. You don't need to think about timing. Don't worry about camera. You know, go as simple as possible. One drawing per shot. Doesn't matter. Or you can start with music, you know, if it helps you to move forward. Do whatever you need to do to move forward quickly. You can do a little bit more. Don't make it harder for yourself trying to make it easy for yourself also, you know. Like if you're worrying too long what to cut out, that you might as well just be doing the thing that you want to do first. So that's kind of what these parts are kind of like what a fight would look like when I first get it started. And while this is not totally clean, I'm definitely gonna like clean up some of these BGs and shit like that. But like, I've gone through and started drawing the characters without backgrounds and shit. Just, you know, just to really see it for what it is. You know, like this is gonna be way more animated than those other ones. It's gonna have more drawings, and the drawings are gonna be a little bit more detailed because I have seen the motion of the shot and the camera in this form. And now I'm taking it just one step further. No clean backgrounds. You know, the character's not too detailed. You know, I might even add more motion later. But but like if you were at work, this would be acceptable for an action scene if you were going to turn it in. Like a revisionist would probably do the rest of this work. This is time consuming. And the reason I decided to do this video now is because I'm actually like in the middle of this shot. You know, you can kind of see, I think I can kind of like go through and effectively talk about like an order of operations for doing this stuff. Cause like I said, like taking one step at a time and not thinking too much and just kind of letting your hands move forward and kind of like do that busy work is how this shit actually gets done. Cause you'd be surprised. Sometimes you won't be thinking, you'll just be kind of improvising, you know, just letting your hands move with the easiest possible thing, and it makes everything fucking easier, you know, after that. Like since cleaning this shot up, I'm realizing that with the proportions, you know, I'm gonna have to adjust this camera, you know, to really show the actions. Like some shit is like really, really off screen. You know, you notice that like Punk like skewers this fucking like bird guy, and during this, like, he pulls him forward, and during this shot, he's, like, using this guy as a human shield, you know, spraying the fucking blood at them, and, you know, like, while he's just, like, whipping them in the face and shit, and, like, fucking, but, like, you might notice that, like, in a lot of these drawings, I've gone through the whole shot and drawn Punk, but I have not cleaned up the guy that he was using as a human shield in this shot. So, like, that's because what was important is Punk. Punk is this is a good important lesson number 3. There's always going to be a thing that is that the rest of the shot is dependent on in any given moment. There's going to be something that's motivating the shot, and that's always the shit you're going to want to draw first. So it can be the camera, it can be a single character, it could be a character's body part, but in this shot specifically, the thing motivating the shot is Punk. So I have Punk coming in here, and he's stabbing this guy. You know, he's moving forward. You know, these other two dudes are starting to notice. So, you know, Fox Fascist over here fucking, you know, points his fucking Luger at him, and like Punk, but like Punk is already there. By the time the guy has noticed that Punk is there, you know, whips him in the face, and then like, you know, uses the guy as a human shield. I haven't drawn it yet, but takes the whip, wraps the whip around his neck, you know, throws him and stuff like that. And with all this shit, the camera is just, and everything else needs to basically Deus Ex Machina itself around whatever Punk is doing. These things will not always make sense if you look at them bit by bit. You know, like a guy might have heard Punk coming, you know, as he brought a giant screaming fascist over here, you know, skewered through the fucking chest with a hook sword. You know, like, that guy might have heard it, you know, or something like that earlier, but that's not important. The scene's gonna be going by so fast, like, you know, as long as it is mildly believable, people will suspend their disbelief. You know, there's a time dilation thing here. Like, take time for anything you need. You don't have to think too much. You know, like, if you look at it and it looks whack, you can start overthinking it a little bit, you know. But like, at this point, it's just good to get something down, because like, if you're doing it right, at least with storyboards, you're gonna be tweaking shit to the very last minute. Don't derail too much of your own work, you know. Like, always be moving forward, but also moving forward sometimes requires you to you know, cut things off, to temper your expectations a little bit, to do less drawings. So I guess I'll just kind of, I didn't know if I wanted to really do some drawing in this one, but I guess that's fine. Fuck it, whatever. Y'all ain't going nowhere. If y'all gonna watch my ass talk and ramble about this shit, like, there ain't no way. If you had the 30 minutes I've been talking, then you probably got way more time than that, right? So okay. So I guess I'll just like clean up some shit, and however long this video gets is however long it gets, whatever. I like talking. Y'all are on YouTube because you need to listen to a nigga talking. I'm here for you, nigga. Okay, so I got the light box on. This is a Storyboard Pro feature. It's very nice because it can tell you exactly what layer you're on, where you got a bunch of shit going on. So for this, man, it's crazy. I keep thinking about this dude I used to work for. Like, he was not a nice dude at all. He's very, very demeaning to us at work. But like, this show I worked on under this cat, he used to always say, I got hired on this show to do action scenes when I was less experienced, and hired because of my action scenes. And this dude used to like once a week, just like look me dead in my fucking face, almost that often. Maybe that's exaggerating, but he used to say constantly, action scenes take no skill. Action scenes take no skill whatsoever. What really takes actual skill and effort is acting scenes, and yada yada yada. Now, I'm not gonna go into this fucking very not nice ass nigga's name or nothing, but I will say that never fucking trust a person who says that any part of the creative process doesn't take skill. Like, just don't. Like, you could be a person who just gets a lot of fucking like art boners out of fucking, you know, drawing fucking cubes. You know, you could be like amazing at drawing like fucking perfect cubes or whatever. And if you want to fucking do that, I think that like people would be shocked at how amazingly transcendent your cubes are. And I know that like that probably sounds like a bit, but like, I'm serious. Like, whatever you spend a lot of time on in art, it's not about the thing not taking skill or anything like that, or not taking thought. It's about what did that individual do with it? What did they bring to the table? You know? So I'm going to show you how much thought is related to action scenes because this is not actually a very uncommon sentiment in animation, but every single person who fucking says that, check their action scenes. That's all I'm fucking saying. If their action scenes don't get your dick hard, don't trust them. Is all I'm saying. Mine might not do that, but I will stick to that at the risk of outing myself so as an amateur. But so basically you have like in this scene, I have to think about the physics of Punk's whip. This is a lot of times why I don't storyboard on stream either, is because there's so much stopping to think, even with the speed at which I tend to draw. But like, I basically have to think of Punk's gravity, where he's going, how he's leaning his weight to use his whip, even at this point before animating, because like the scene won't hit right if the fucking the poses don't. So I don't want the poses to be moving too fast, and I don't want the movements between each other to seem too unnatural. So whenever Punk does something with the whip, I have to like basically have the other Punk has to move his arm with the whip before the whip does something to affect the other person, or else it might become kind of fucking unnatural. So for this, I'm gonna have to come in and do an in-between where Punk's arm fucking moves first and then the whip comes in. But I'm just doing broad strokes at this point and cleaning up. Even when I'm done cleaning up these drawings, this shot will not be done. But flicks his arm, and this is the action that this is what's significant here, is that like right here, when he pulls his arm in for the whip is going to drag back behind, and whatever the next few frames are, I need to think about the back of the whip and where it is going to go around this character and how this relates to Punk's strategy. What is Punk thinking in the moment, and what is the other character who's his opponent? What is he thinking in the moment? If you can't see what the characters are thinking, that is the difference between a shit fight and a good fight. Like, I don't like to be that hyperbolic when it comes to like fucking like art good or bad, because I'm kind of like a Newgrounds shit post troll at 30, but like fucking like I really, really mean it when I say that, like, if you are watching a fight and you can't tell what the characters are thinking, that's kind of a fucking problem. So Punk is going in, he wants to rescue these animals. He knows he's fighting a crowd. So with Punk knowing that he's fighting a fucking crowd using two weapons, he is basically going to have to be constantly thinking of ways to not get shot while he is, like incapacitating one person. He also has to be thinking about how he's not getting shot. So this is why I put so much emphasis on him stabbing this guy on the hook sword and then using him as a human shield, because it's unlikely, unless Punk is just a character who can dodge bullets. I'm sure you've seen fights like this where one character is just fighting a bunch of niggas with guns, but like a 14-year-old anime girl, who knows kung fu, is just not faster than a nigga with a gun. Sorry, especially not a thug or a soldier, so I chose Punk's weapons based on like how I want him to fight. I want him to fight big groups of people, but I gave him stuff that moves other characters around. He has a hook sword so that he can grab things with the hook sword. And by things, I mean people's rib cages. And I gave him a whip because of the theming of him being an escaped slave, but also like because it is another weapon that is momentum based that he can use to move people around, create human shields, incapacitate people at a distance while planning to finish them off, having a moment to fucking think. So he's using this hook sword to grab this guy, coming up behind this guy. This guy is hearing Punk. He turns around and he sees that Punk is here and has this guy skewered. But what is significant here is that he is not shooting yet. This has only been 1 second, and I believe that's a believable amount of time before somebody would like decide time to shoot, especially if they hear one of their comrades screaming and his blood being sprayed everywhere. So so he turns around, he thinks about shooting, He aims at Punk, but by the time he aims the gun at Punk, Punk is already midway through. He has already thought of what he's going to do to this guy. He saw him right here. I need to fix the eye direction on the cleanup because, like, I cleaned up Punk first. But, like, he sees the guy and already starts doing what he's going to do next. His arm is winding up for this fucking cock back on the whip in this shot. And he was thinking about that beforehand. And this is kind of like how you separate how many drawings you want for, like, a fighting storyboard. It's like you want to really make sure you hammer out one beat at a time, because, like, the human brain can only register one thing at a time, kind of. And that's at least what directors out here say. And when they're paying you, you got to listen to them. So, but I think it's good advice, because I think it's made my fights better to listen to that advice. So, you know, Punk is one step ahead of this guy, and that's significant with where I put the camera. That's significant with the posing, and it's significant in making it believable that everything that's happening here. So, I need to not see the camera. Okay, right. So, just to zoom it out a little bit. So, he was already one step ahead. Next key is the guy getting incapacitated. He flicks the whip. You know, there's going to be more drawings to this, but it's important that the guy gets hit in the face with the fucking whip, because that justifies Punk not getting immediately shot. You know, maybe the guy not being necessarily able to respond to him quick enough to stop from getting whipped in the fucking face. Then he shoots, and Punk is like, since this is the thing that is leading this beat in the fucking fight, I did not draw the human shield character. What's important is that Punk is starting his next move, and what is equally important is that Foxler over here is fucking shooting at him. So, like, he starts his next move. He shoots the fucking human shield. But Punk was already, once again, a step ahead of him. He's already mid-move. The guy shoots. The whip hits his neck. And, that caused the dude to shoot again. Punk still got the human shield. But, what is important is that we show that Punk is pulling the whip back. That's what's most important. Secondary in importance is showing that this character is believably reacting to getting a whip wrapped around his fucking neck. So when I get to drawing the human shield character, at that point I can draw him last, because this is what's fucking important, and I don't have to worry. I can build his pose and his silhouette around the silhouettes of Punk and Fox Fashy here that he's fucking grabbing by the neck and swinging around. So he grabs him. And so, main movement here. I drew this first, and I think this is the last thing I cleaned up on the Fox guy, but Punk is swinging his body around. Remember, he has to be one step ahead of the fucking whip for the physics to fucking make sense. So Punk is arching his back first, and all the movement is dependent on that. That's why this is so fucking important for this, to always know exactly what is the fucking important thing in the scene, because it guides everything else. I drew this first because I could not possibly have drawn Fox Fashy fucking getting dragged without knowing what direction Punk is going to be swinging his body and what direction he's going to be swinging the whip. So this is where the choreography comes in, and a lot of storyboarding has a lot of shit like this. Conversations can totally be like this too, but if those can be like that, then fights are definitely equally, should be as thought out. So I know already, before, Punk swings this guy around, I'm going to probably have him swing more. Once again, there's going to be more in-betweens to sell the movement more. But I know that Punk is next he's going to jump. He's going to let the swing of his back move him around. And then this way, the swing of his motion, which was the priority of this beat of the shot, is going to motivate Punk around this fucking movement and then have him get flung into the air while he drags the fucking fox guy this way. Okay, so once again, we have our fucking guiding action here. I don't know if that's what they would call it at work, but like this is direly important to making hype shit that seems believable, really having that fucking crunch. So you may notice, there is other enemies and other combatants in this shot, who are just kind of, I just have them here, just to be like, this is where they will be, or something like that. So when I get to cleaning up these other guys, once again, I am basically going to have their actions only be shit that justifies what Punk is doing. It's all a bunch of fucking, what's it called? Deus Ex Machina, for lack of a better term, but like contrivance. Everything is a contrivance around what is leading the action in the scene. So whatever this other guy does is, I didn't go into detail in the roughs because whatever this dude does is going to be whatever is convenient to get Punk throwing the fucking eagle guy into him and having him get knocked away. So you might notice that like how would Punk hit him from here to here? It doesn't fucking matter, because when I go back and clean this guy up and like tweak it and make it right, I'm gonna be moving this dude wherever he needs to be. Jesus Christ, Storyboard Pro. I'm gonna be moving this nigga wherever he needs to be in order to get Punk like throwing Eagle Man into him. So that's the fucking point. You should always know what's leading the action, contrive everything around it, make it as believable as you can. That is extremely important. And here's another thing. So there's differing opinions on this, but you've probably, I've mentioned the camera a few times in this, and the camera is extremely fucking important, because in an action scene, and I think even in a conversation scene, like it's more about composition when you talk about the camera and like composing a talk, or an interesting cartoony thing, that's not like a kinetic action set piece. But like with a kinetic action set piece, you should be figuring out what the camera is doing pretty fucking early. The camera is massively goddamn important. There's a lot of people who are action guys who do not fuck with that shit. They kind of grew up watching like very straightforward kind of like Western action scenes, made by actors, who are not martial artists, and like they're shot very flat. The camera doesn't move a lot, and they tend to use words like abuse, abusing the camera, when talking about like Sakuga fights, things in fucking like Eastern cinema, action scenes. The camera is always very kinetic and shit like that, because it's made by fucking martial artists who care about the choreography, not models. So like not that everybody in the West is like that, but it's getting better. But back in the day, action was pretty flat. So don't worry about abusing the camera. The only bad thing that can come from doing literally whatever the fuck you want with the camera is a lapse in clarity. A lapse in clarity is a bad thing, and that can always be fixed along the way. So, there's a lapse in clarity here because the rough stick figure drawings I drew of Punk were a different size than what his actual anatomy called for in this shot. And I'm still figuring out the perspective and shit like that, making sure it's like believable. That's what all these fucking lines are. So I'm gonna have to adjust the camera, but it didn't hurt anything for me to plan that I was gonna move this camera a fuck ton, and it might not be super clear right now, but like I said, broad strokes. You're always gonna be sculpting. You're not doing one thing and then like oh, that's it. You are sculpting something. So always be tweaking the fucking camera in any way that you think is fucking interesting, but just make sure that it's clear if you want to do it for work. You can be unhinged, and based, and make fights that are absolutely ungodly levels of unclear, that's fine. I will not find you and fight you, and nor will I judge you. I'll probably watch you, but like, um, clarity is important if you want to be a professional. Clarity is everything because people don't always have your sensibilities, and they might want something cool, and your sensibilities are the thing that makes that thing cool, but they got, they won't give a fuck about it unless they can actually understand what's going on, right? So, some things that I use for clarity is to make sure that we got like a good composition, like a good silhouette here that reads for everybody. Um, Now, this shot's gonna get a little cluttered because there's a lot of characters, but if you don't know this, silhouette is basically the theory that whatever the shapes of your art is should be able to read what the person is looking at, even if it were all blacked out. So like, this is Punk's silhouette. It's just like the shapes of his body. Can we tell, like what he is doing in this moment when this shit is in motion? Like as close as we can. Like you should not have to clean things up for them to be too clear, especially when you're working on a team. A lot of times, other people are going to be coming behind you and cleaning up. So, if my camera is here, I am basically looking at every drawing as if it is just this. Because in truth, silhouette. Oh shit! Push my tablet back, Lordy Jesus. Okay. So in truth, silhouette is the difference between some shit that actually hits and makes people say wow, and some shit and some old whack shit that's soft. So if I make the cleanup invisible, you can kind of still tell that like they're like, normally you wouldn't want things to be too jumbled up or touching really, but like you want the silhouette to just be as dynamic as you can get it, because like if the fox guy was right here in the camera, this fucking close, and it's like, what are we looking at here? But there's a chance that you could understand there's a fucking guy and a fucking furry pointing, like with his arm out, and there's a guy with a whip, so that's what I talk about when I'm talking about when I say silhouette in this. And when I'm picking the camera spot, that silhouette is related to where I place the camera in any given beat. So right here, and I might end up tweaking this, but like I took care at exactly this fucking spot to make sure that Punk is not touching the fox guy in his silhouette. I am trying to keep the fox guy his own whole ass entity down here. Oh, I know what'll fucking help. Because if I say take this and do like an auto mat here, you see how like you can tell there's three people here. There's a guy holding a whip. This person is wearing, some gay ass boots, and somebody has been impaled from behind, and maybe there's a furry, like kind of like coming forward, and he's holding something. You can't see the gun, but you can see enough of the characters for this to read. This is always super important. You don't have to block out every drawing in order to understand silhouette. Just like, if you are drawing and your shapes are just very, very pushed in or whatever, it's not really going to like read as clearly. Even when you clean it up, it's not going to read as clearly. What makes the difference between like a walking guy with your hands and like, just like a fist? You can say this fist is a person walking. Look, they're walking. But what's better is to silhouette your hand towards the person with the fucking legs, if that kind of makes sense. So that is what I'm thinking at every moment while I'm doing this. It's not always going to be perfect, but just get as good as you can. It's good to work quick. Like I said, broad strokes, because like right here, there's silhouettes crossover, but that's okay because I took special care to make sure that even in this part where, Punk is moving past them, you can still see a good amount of the fucking dude. All you need to see is the fox. We already know what Punk did. All you need to see is the fox looking at the guy being impaled to show by this very silhouette and by where the camera is at that he is spotting Punk skewering his friend for the first time. And if a silhouette crosses over, just be careful. It can do that. But, in this situation, what would probably actually be best is for me to kind of move this guy's arm in a little bit. It will make it clearer. I know this looks like a bunch of gibberish, but trust me, it makes it clearer for me to do that. You see how much of a difference that made? That was literally something I didn't even fucking notice. Now their silhouettes aren't touching. Da bam. You can tell that there's three people here if the whip was, not filled in also, but like, you get what I mean? So moving on. And yes, I do think about every one of these drawings that much, especially in this like key phase. But the camera is so important in that because like the camera is all that dictates where the person's eye goes. So for this sort of thing, in a camera shot, it's okay to have several things that the person can be looking at when you're choosing the shot. But ooh, the music stopped. So a person can look at two things, but there's always going to be a dominant thing and a secondary thing. And if you're lucky and if you're really, really good, you can have them do a tertiary thing. That's my buddy Ash's favorite fucking word, tertiary. They say tertiary all the goddamn time. They're also a board artist. But fucking, there's a third thing, that a person can take in, right? So when doing a fight and like shooting a shot, you want to make sure you always know what the primary thing the person is looking at. Once again, that'll probably be the part of the shot that is leading the action. So in this one, you would be right to assume, yeah, like we should, Punk should be closest to the center of the screen. Whatever's at the center of the screen is what people are going to be fucking looking at. Now, I'm going to leave this one alone because there's more to this. Like, the Fox guy is, after all, aiming at them. And maybe I do want people to see his gun and the Eagle guy, getting skewered first, right? But as this progresses, I'm going to have to move the camera around more and kind of like take some camera parts out to make sure that everything is on screen. Because like where the rough was here, this is not a great composition, like right here, but the camera will eventually come here. So instead of just letting that horror continue to fucking exist, I'm gonna just copy paste this camera and just make a very slight movement just to make sure that the fight is not coming to like this screeching fucking halt. So I'll maybe move the camera just a bit, just a skosh to make sure that we are seeing exactly what this beat is meant to convey. People need to know that Punk is about to fucking whip this nigga in the face. And at this point, the camera is going to move somewhere else. Now in the rough version, I had the camera come down for some reason. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to move the camera inward to show the important thing that I am trying to show here. And this is what I'm talking about when I say you can pretty much do anything with the camera in an action scene, and that you should try everything if it makes it clearer. I think it's worth it. A lot of Western board artists do not feel that way, but I could not disagree more. I grew up watching anime. It all read perfectly clear to me, and if it didn't, I watched it again. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, perfectly composed. So move the camera a little bit there to kind of get like everything in the screen. But the primary thing here that is closest to the center of the screen right here is the whip hitting the guy's fucking face. That's what I want people to fucking see when, more than anything. And the secondary thing is Punk cracking the whip, because we already know Punk was going to do that. We saw him as the primary subject in the last beat, so we don't need to, you know, focus on him too much for this. And we got a spare one here that doesn't fit. So I like to copy paste camera frames. Ooh, excuse me. Just to kind of like slow down on one fucking moment, you know, to make sure that like they can actually see the thing I'm intending for them to see. And it's not always going to be perfect. You're going to have to feel it out every fucking time, but like it will get better. Like by the time you're done with the shot, you're going to still be tweaking the camera, but you'll at least have made every decision deliberately. Therefore, when you look at it later, you know, you'll be able to actually like see what you were thinking. So camera kind of stops right here, you know, and then like guy shoots, and I think I'm gonna have, you know, this cleanup drawing dictates that I should probably have the camera come back to Punk, you know, before he fucking whips him in the face, just to really add some impact. Because like now, after the guy's been whipped, now we need to know that Punk is winding up to fucking whip him again. So we're gonna come back a little, and sometimes too much emphasis like this can be too much, but we'll only know that when we see it. So try everything, because there's this thing called the undo button. You don't have to think too much about it. Just do stuff, you know, do what makes sense in the moment. So I'm going to take this camera pose, kind of, you know, add a little kinesis to it, you know what I'm saying? Make it a little bigger since we're coming out a little bit. Might have to like do wideness on all these. But okay, so right here, Punk is the subject. You know, obviously the guy shooting at him, we can see that. We don't need to see the whole ass fox, you know, to know that. But we should start putting the camera towards the fox, because we're gonna need to see that the whip is going around his neck. So at this point, copy paste this frame again, because they're kind of changing sizes. I'm kind of, you know, when you're moving in broad strokes, you're kind of going kind of quick and dirty. So I'm gonna take this camera frame, put the fox kind of towards the, you know, a little bit more towards the center than Punk. Let Punk be a little secondary in this shot, because really what we need to see here is, you know, his whip just magically wrapping around this nigga's neck in a way that absolutely is impossible in real life. I've tried it with ropes before. Never with a whip, though. Never tried to wrap around something with a whip. I don't know. In anime, you know, like in everything, you can just like whip something at something and it'll just wrap around it. I love that. It's one of my favorite dumbass cartoon tropes. So since so we're actually getting a little lucky here, because this guy, the next thing that happens here is kind of a slow action. There's two whole beats that we really don't need to move the camera much for. So I'm going to move the camera forward a little bit more. And just kind of hold, you know, like let it drift a little bit, because like, you know, I am an anime weeaboo. I don't fucking want no still ass camera in my fight scenes. That's disgusting. That's like that is basically the equivalent of like putting mayonnaise on shit, you know? When you're black, you go out into mainstream America and niggas, you know, things are flavorless and weird, and you're like, this needs hot sauce, and people are like, but it's too spicy, and niggas are just like, what do you mean by that? Those words, they don't make sense to me. I'm from a continent with poisonous plants and animals that will kill you. So fucking but you keep this here. What was I talking about? So all this camera experimentation, letting it move around and shit like that, don't be afraid to resize it. Don't be afraid of it moving too much, because if it's too much and it does too much, you can always fucking fix it later. Smooth it out. Work in broad strokes, you know. Ask people if they can understand what's happening, you know, in the shot or whatever. But I basically, when I'm thinking this carefully about every drawing, I am making goddamn fucking sure that whatever, you know, crazy kinetic camera movement I make is capturing the true primary subject of the shot. And right here, I want niggas to see, this motherfucker's neck getting this fucking whip wrapped around it. So, it's kind of gross to have a tangent here with Punk's foot and the side of the screen. Like that's one of them no-nos. But also like, I'm just like a fucking rebel, man. You know what I'm saying? These fucking Western cartoon rules can't fucking contain me, nigga. So I'm gonna keep the camera on fucking Fox guy here a little bit, just as a preliminary. Keep him sort of towards the center of the camera. Make sure we can kind of see that Punk is leading him, but he's close enough to the center in this one. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so we're kind of getting there. We're gonna be filling it out a little bit more and making it a little bit more dynamic as we add more drawings. But that part, I don't think I need to go into that part. Y'all know what in-betweening is. Like you're just gonna go in, do basically this. Be very thoughtful about what drawings, the bare minimum amount of drawings needed to sell a movement is what storyboarding is about when it comes to doing it for animation. So, right here, this guy is going to be coming back here, so I think this is actually a pretty good spot for the camera. We got a good silhouette on Punk. The guy is going to, be somewhere right here, so he's somewhere towards the center of the camera. And then, with this one, we are going to, in this one, we're trying to show, like, mostly that Punk is beginning the process or has thrown this guy already. I think, like, I changed my mind to make it so that Punk lands first. So he is, this rough might be a little deceiving. Let me get rid of that. Broad strokes, nigga. Get rid of this because we already got this drawing. That's fine. And it's good to eliminate shit so you can kind of focus too, So that's fine because I want to know where his whip is. Or maybe I'll just get rid of the body. And then I can just maybe I'll just get rid of the body. Okay, so put this up here so I know that he's in front. Punk is going to be swinging this guy around. So right here, this is a pretty quick. This beat is not here for very long. So we take those. We don't mind Punk being right in the center of the fucking camera. It's a quick movement, but I can always slow it down later. And so we got one that establishes that Punk is landing. And then, he's throwing these people off to the side right here. So remember, this is the direly fucking important part, is that, like, after these roughs, the rough version of this. God damn, never tasted that flavor. That's fire. So fucking, you got the camera right here. Now we can start moving it a little bit because we have a motivation. Fights will look whack if there's no reason for why you're moving the camera. And I think that's maybe like the issue that a lot of Western animation directors who work on action cartoons are running into that makes them averse to too much camera movement. But, yeah, like, as long as you know the reason why you're moving the camera, you can pretty much do anything with it, as long as everything reads. But having camera motion just for the sake of having it look like fucking Sakuga, man, like, it's not enough to make some shit genuinely hype. You really want people, it doesn't matter how big the power beam is, it doesn't matter, like, what a cool thing your character is doing. If the person watching it can't register that shit, they're not gonna have fun. They're just gonna be confused. And while I have a lot of disagreements with the sensibilities of things that I've had to kind of adhere to on the job, I cannot disagree with that. My favorite fights are the ones where I'm just like, I'm able to tell you what buck wild ass shit I just saw, because everything read. So you can do whatever you want. Just gotta make sure everything reads. So like in the spirit of that, I would move these roughs you know, closer to Punk, so that we can see everything. You know, the closer to the center of the screen, the easier all this shit will read. So maybe I'll just like, I'll readjust the poses to kind of have it going more, more inward, you know, because before it was kind of stretching all the way out that way, but that's kind of just like, if you're looking at Punk, you know, because he's closest to the screen, he's bigger on the screen, you want to make sure to really draw attention to, you know, like what he is doing. So pulling these dudes closer to the center, and then I can just pose them later to make it kind of like more inward as opposed to going that way. It's going inward this way. Shit's direly fucking important when picking your camera shots and shit. So once again, roughs were a little bit different, you know, when I was doing the camera, so smoothing it out. Punk should probably be in the center right here, but I think maybe also it could be Fox guy, you know, that he's dragging around by the neck. So we'll make sure that doesn't go too far. You don't want the camera to be too spastic too, you know, that can, too much movement at once, like an overposed camera can also defeat a lot of your cool ideas too. But once again, keeping Punk center camera. If it's too fast, we'll fix it later. So I'm thinking that when it gets to this part with the Fox guy that he's spinning around, I'm gonna want him to be closer as well. I'm gonna have their fucking silhouettes meet, because for the sake of the movement. This is all happening very fast, and it's very weird. This nigga's jumping, doing a fucking pirouette, like a complete fuckboy, and then fucking like swinging this nigga around in front of camera. And if I like say, you know, color him in, it makes it a little easier to read for later. So this guy's in front of Punk. I would rather than have a good silhouette on Punk, I would rather show this dude absolutely losing his shit, being dragged around by his neck. Spins around again. So our guy up here, our Fox guy, because these are just broad strokes, I didn't worry too much about it. Our Fox guy is assumedly off screen up above Punk here somewhere. So it's fine that he's just alone in this shot. This blue thing right here is the whip, obviously. And we can take this rough of him out because we have the final drawings here almost. So we're gonna keep, you know, I'm gonna keep molding that, you know, like I'm gonna keep, and as I clean up every drawing, the camera's gonna change, the amount of movement in the camera's gonna change. You know, but don't be afraid of that shit. Don't be afraid of wasting time. There's no such thing as wasted time with art. Seriously. I mean, unless you're at work, you know. But you're being paid to not do that, you know, at work. But, like, you working on your own shit, you just trying to fucking stunt at home, my nigga, like, don't worry about wasting time. Everything you do, everything you draw, even if it's not in the final product, if it led to a better decision, you would not have ended up at that decision without that thing that happened first. If that makes any sense. So when this is all done, this is kind of how I do like a shot with a lot of characters now. I keep up with it. It's just going very carefully, thinking everything out, thinking every camera movement out, all this shit like that. This is what I do at work, you know, and this is how I keep track of everything. You know, a lot of these shots, I had ideas, you know, for where the camera was, and then I started cleaning up the drawings, and then I had to like change that. You know, this one has no BG because the background is superfluous. I know for a fact in this shot that wherever Punk is on the BG, the important part is that I get these drawings of him on screen. So I'm not worried about the BG. This one's tied down to the BG. So where he lands and shit like that. I'm keeping track of like this one BG, you know, in camera. And then this next one, Punk is the subject and the background just doesn't matter, so I didn't even fucking draw it. Fuck it. I don't need it yet. I will, you know, eventually at some point I'll come through and like I will draw a BG and just move the camera around it, or I'll you know, bullshit a BG or something like that. You know, in this one, I didn't even, like, this one's just like speed lines and like the insinuation of a floor. And I'm not going to draw too much detail of the BG on this either, because what matters is the motion of Punk's vials that he's throwing. But this shot looked very fucking different when it was rough. You know, like, this is how every shot will look. And notice, you know, every drawing I picked, a drawing for each step. The fascie stepping up, the acid bomb hitting their faces, you know, it comes out, and then we get the smoke from the acid. You know, wounded prey guys, you know, fucking like looking back, and you know, like their faces melting from the fucking acid. And then like every camera move here was deliberate just like that. There's much less of them, but like camera move here is seeing Punk jump through the fucking smoke. And then, like, he motivates the camera move after that. It was down here, primary motivation, Donkey Boy flying through camera into the fucking smoke, through the smoke over there. You know, he kind of goes off camera at this point, and then, like, he's the secondary subject, because now we want to see that the prey guys that he's saving are surprised. So we just let that rock. Let the guy's sizzling, cooking head be the subject on screen. You know, all these movements are just like what needs to be on screen in the moment is direly fucking important. You cannot have a cool action scene just with a bunch of fucking drawings. It does not work that way, unfortunately. Drawing mindlessly is very fun, I get it, but like, if you're thinking about your silhouettes and stuff like that, that's how you get the really cool shit, you know? So, yeah, I think that's a good starter. Experiment a lot, you know, like I'm not going to draw this whole thing on screen because it's just too much thinking, too much talking that it will require to justify everything, but this should be enough to where you can kind of get started, because all the next steps are kind of up to you. How much you like to use camera, how much body movement you want to use, if you want it to be grounded, or you know, grounded onto a background like this to where their foot placement and, you know, their distribution of weight is really important, or a shot like this where it's just whatever bullshit it looks cool on screen, and the BG be damned, it can do whatever I want later, you know, like that's direly important to think about as you do these as well. But whatever the thing that's easiest to draw first is probably should always be the first thing you do first. And yeah, like just experiment, see how things feel, you know, when they're moving and stuff like that. Your style will not be something that you can decide. It will be something that is discovered by experimentation and by what comes easiest to you and what looks coolest to you. And everything you make will look jank as fuck to you later in life. It doesn't matter. Everything you need your current jank ass fights to become the Sakuga legend that you want to be. You know what I'm saying, nigga? So yeah, that's all I got to say. You know, I ain't no big shot around LA or nothing, but like, I am just a homo who loves drawing niggas getting their asses whooped. So, yeah, thanks for watching. This shit hopefully coming this month. And then probably start e-begging for Kill Wolfie 2. So, yeah, if I can't find any work anyway. So, yeah, catch y'all bitches later. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.